Well, hello, everyone, and happy International Women's Day Plus 2025. We are so delighted to be with you today to keep this party going because International Women's Day is not a day, it's not a moment, it's a movement. Today, we're all about empowering insurance professionals. So, a warm welcome from me. I'm Margaret Resce Milkint, and I am the very honored chair of Million Women Mentors STEM Connectors Women in Insurance Initiative. Hello, everyone. Let's move on to introductions. And I have a wonderful cast of insurance industry luminaries here with me today. And I want to just say a quick introduction, what I'm going to say about all of them. And this is their universal superpower. They are head, heart, and hands leaders. They are the luminaries in the industry that make it work, that make this thing go. And I'm so thrilled to be able to share this wonderful screen with them today. I am going to give quick hellos and shout outs. First to Brandon Keller from Germania Insurance, Don Walker from AM Best, Marissa Peters from USAA, Lee Vu, founder of Multicultural Insurance Reinsurance, and last but not least, Christina Lucas from Guidewire. Warm welcome, everyone. So happy to be here with you today. Oh, and Kaylee Bell, there you are on my screen from Swiss Re. All right, I think I got everybody. Everybody's with us on the party. Well, we're thrilled for everyone to be here today. I'm going to start out with my most important housekeeping announcement. And that is, this is a safe place. This is a place for us to listen, to learn, to share, to laugh, to engage. I like to call this a little bit of spa time for us. And with that, I'm going to open it up to this very esteemed panel. I know that they're excited to be able to share their wisdom, their light, their lift, and their perspectives on our journey today. So we are all creating an environment in insurance, a culture, universally, where everyone can succeed. So how can we drive that change at an organizational level, at a personal level, with that mantra and that spirit of head, heart, and hands? And Kaylee, I'm going to start with you. Would you kick us off?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it really comes down to equal opportunity. So I think the company needs to be consistent and communicating often about what success looks like and creating those opportunities for employees to upskill, whether that's training programs, shadowing, rotations, mentoring opportunities, and really making sure that everyone knows what's available to them. And also advocating for career roadmap conversations. I think personally, I've really benefited from transparent conversations with past managers about what I'm looking to work on and where I'm looking to go so they can help map out what that looks like and what I need to be doing.
No, that's terrific, Kaylee. And your leadership in groups like Re40 and ISC Group really does make a difference. So thank you. Dawn, I'm going to come over to you. What can we do organizationally as well as individuals?
I think that we can first admit that we're not here to fit into the insurance industry as it exists today. We're here to continue to transform it. And I think that success isn't just about the individual achievement, right? It's about making a path to broaden, so that everyone wants to follow, can follow. Organizations need to move beyond performative diversity, and they need to commit to structural change. That means leadership reflects the world that we're trying to serve. And we're holding that door open, you know, for others to rise up with us. So if you're in a position to change the system, do that. But if you're not in a position just yet to do that, just keep pushing until you are, because it's really important that we create workspaces that support every voice. We don't just need to help women. We're trying to build something that's stronger. We're trying to build something that's smarter and something that's more innovative. So all of these more innovative companies. So that's how I feel about what we can do to drive change at an organizational level.
I love that. Don, you gave us some beautiful metaphors and the path and the journey. I love hold open the door. I love that. I love that. If we all hold that door open for each other, just think of how much better off we're going to be. That's terrific. Brandon, I'm looking right at you. It's a pleasure to have you join us. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks, Margaret. Really, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. It really is an honor to be part of this discussion and along with the other panelists. And thanks so many of you that joined us today for this important discussion. At Germania, when I think about creating an environment where really everybody can succeed, it starts with hiring. I think for us being really intentional and consistent about casting a wide net so that we're getting a wide variety of folks applying for jobs, really focusing on hiring the best talent and trying to get get a diverse group of folks to be able to join the company. Once they're in the company, then to me it's about fostering an environment where really the best rise up. And so that way when promotions happen, we've got a strong pipeline of diverse, high-performing candidates. And when there's key initiatives that come up, I turn to the folks that get things done, and many of those are women. And it's just a matter of getting the opportunities, proving yourself, and then naturally you're going to rise within the company. So that's the key area that I focus on.
No, that's great. And that key word, that beautiful word of intentionality. Nothing happens by accident. We all know that. And when we put our heads, our hearts, and our hands on it, it does happen. But it doesn't magically happen. It has to happen with purpose. It has to happen with intention. And I think we all are feeling that energy today. Speaking of energy, and I'm going to stay on the great state of Texas with Marissa.
Yes, no, I'm going to take it a little differently because at USA we have actually taken this on, and so I think formalizing it is the biggest step change that we can do, right? We have to move. We've had the conversations. We're here today having a conversation, but formalizing those actions, right? We love to say what gets measured gets done, and we all know it's true, right? At the end of every year with those scorecards. So what gets measured gets done. And I love Brandon saying intentional, right? But it's intentional measurement. And how do we formalize and bring this to a level of formalization where we can see and know what we are actually striving for in this? And when I think about success, one of the things we are even pushing more is there is no canned measure of someone's success. Success for me is different than what Dawn's success is, I'm sure, what Callie's success is, I'm sure. And understanding that's how we bring it to that individual level, right? So organizationally, formalize, measure, really put pen to paper. Individual, it's understanding that what is success to you and how do we help you get there through the things that we can offer for you versus having this very black and white success looks like this or it doesn't, because that's just not true anymore. Everyone's different.
Yeah, it's a great point, Marissa. And what you've said so beautifully dovetails with Brandon. We do have to make it personal. We do have to make it intentional. And this is not a one size fits all exercise. It isn't. The other thing I love to say, and I learned this from my yoga practice, it is a practice. It's not perfect, right? Along the way, we're practicing, we're learning. It's not just one thing, but it's iterative. And we learn from each other, and it's layering of moments like this, experiences, informal, formal, how you're doing it. All I'm going to say is we just got to do it. Christina, over to you.
Well, you brought up a good word. You said layering. So I'm actually gonna think layer across what, Kaylee, Marissa, Don, Brandon said. It's really seeing, recognizing, and empowering the people in the room. Oftentimes we kind of say, I want to get in the room, but once we're in the room, we also need to make sure that we're inclusive of all the different voices that are in that room. And when we don't see that the room is inclusive, then how are we going to make sure, we're really raising our voices and asking those questions? So whether that's, if you are in a management position, looking at the promotions across a team and saying, why wasn't this person promoted? Explain to me why, because we want to make sure that we're being fair and equitable in the opportunities. When it comes to compensation planning, if you have that power to be able to look across the compensation pool and making sure that it's fair and equitably being distributed. I also wanted to bring up a really good point that Don brought up. If you kind of look at some of the adjacent industries, they've been at more of a forefront of bringing in talent that represents the customers that are there. And if you think about the insurance industry, where's the growth opportunity, whether that's, middle market, personal lines across the board, where's the growth in our industry and how do we have employees and talent that reflects that consumer base? So if you think about whether that's from a sales perspective or the product development perspective or actuarial perspective, are we having those different voices? Just one more quick example, speaking to an actuary, and traditionally when car insurance came to be, women were considered bad risk because of course women are bad drivers. There's actually no data around that, but women paid higher premiums. And then when they actually started to take a data-driven approach, women have the lowest premiums, but it was this balance of perception, versus actual data driven. And we want to make sure as an industry, we grow using data as the basis for whether that's product development, innovation, or the claims process. So thank you.
I love that, Christina. And those are some of my favorite words that you mentioned. Data, actuaries, voices in the room, the ecosystem, and the intersectionality of everything that we do. I mean, we are in this beautiful and complex ecosystem, and it's up to us, to be able to use the voices for change, for good, for lift, for growth. It is an exciting time. And anybody who hasn't felt that energy in insurance, we got to change that because insurance is fantastic. I am so bullish on insurance. I tell this to everybody I know, everybody who is inside, outside, touching insurance. They go, I don't know anything about insurance. And I say, oh, you've come to the right person, right? We all have to evangelize this great industry. Before I go on to Lee, Brandon, as our actuary on the line, any thoughts on the shifts there and what you've seen from one of your lenses as an actuary?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. And I think something Christina mentioned, which, so we create opportunities, but then when you look at the results and folks want to say, well, there's just someone like me that I see in a position, which makes it seem more possible. At Germania, we've got a 9-person senior leadership team. And I was just thinking about preparing for this call, our last 3 promotions to the senior leadership team were all women. And it wasn't because we were trying to make that happen. It was because those were the right people for those opportunities. And one is our chief actuary, Killeen Arquette. And she's tremendous for those of you who know her. I just think that kind of the STEM and getting women more involved in STEM is tremendous. And I put in the chat, but my daughter, Erin, who's on the line here, she's a sophomore at UT in Austin and a math major, and she's got a internship at Gallagher Re this summer. She's very excited to really understand the industry. But it just, as I see her start her journey, it reminds me just how important it is to show young women and young people that insurance is an exciting career. As you said, I've not had a dull day the past 3 years. Watching the hailstorms, dealing with inflation, reinsurance, it is exciting, it's challenging, and we need to show our folks that and get them excited about it. One other comment I'll make is this month, and this wasn't me, this was our team, they're spotlighting 6 of our women leaders on LinkedIn throughout the month. And I think that's really exciting because it just shows people, hey, there's an opportunity for me, and it generates excitement, and people can see themselves in those chairs. So anyway, thanks, Margaret.
No, I think it's wonderful. Erin, thank you for joining us. Thank you for jumping into the insurance industry. We love it. And this is our moment, right, Lee? So Lee, you see a lot, you do a lot, you cover this landscape like no other. Why don't you give us some of your thoughts?
No, I appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. And I think everyone on this call just made really good points. And I think it's one of those things, if you look at it from an individual standpoint, it's very different. But if you look at it from an industry standpoint, there are a lot of different things that we can see that has progressed, right? I think us having this conversation is a testament to kind of how much the industry has progressed, but there's definitely a lot more work to be done. And I think when we look at it, it's, taking a lot of different pieces into the puzzle, just like what Christina said, and just touching on different areas of the industry, right? That it's so vast. And I think sometimes people forget about how different it is, right, from other industries, how much we touch the various world in our different capacities. And I think someone said in the chat, I think it was Jennifer, as a data analyst, the numbers don't lie. And I think that's a big part of it, where we're all coming together to kind of talk about that when you look at the metrics and things like that from what, is going on at the USAA, is just really formalizing things and putting some measurements and accountability behind it. I think it really just ties everything all together.
Yeah. Those are fantastic points. And, we have a whole other webinar, but I want to bring this up, is that when we have the moment to blend artificial intelligence and human intelligence, that's when the magic happens, when we get to humanize this industry. And we're doing it here. You're doing it in the chat by joining a webinar like today, a conversation like today. You're part of it. Your voice is heard. Your voice is heard on this session. But after the session, your voice needs to be heard. Those voices and amplifying the voices, that's where the growth happens. That's where the change happens. That's where the welcome mat goes out on this industry, on all the good and all the energy and all the reach and perspective. It's an exciting time to be in insurance. So I'm going to shift us over to, I know all of you have a big heart and head and hands for mentorship, allyship, executive sponsorship within your own organizations and outside of them, in industry groups that you volunteer in and that you lead. So Kaylee, I know you talked a lot about mentorship when you kicked us off. So I'm gonna go right back to you. Talk a little bit about, your experiences, what you've seen, and maybe some advice or some perspectives that you have.
Absolutely. I think being young and coming into an industry that is a little bit wiser than maybe some of us coming in are, I think it's so important to learn from others who have been where you're looking to go. I think I've really benefited from having different mentors at different levels, from different countries, from different backgrounds, just to really create a broader perspective and really push me to that next level. So I just think it's super important to get out there and get involved. Like you said, there's so many industry organizations that can help you broaden your network when you're first starting out. So I'm super involved in Re Under 40s. We host many events like in partnership with ISC and other groups where we can even bring interns into, young professional levels, so we can engage early on and really share why this industry is so great and how we're all here to bring one another up. I think it's just important to remember we have huge networks and those didn't happen overnight, right? So I think we should always be thinking about, when we're talking with someone, is there someone that we could connect with them with, some skill that they might have in common, and how can we help them get to a similar level of network that we have? Because I think it really just helps all of us get to that next level.
No, that's so true. And I think having the interns be a part is so wonderful because this is an industry of apprenticeship. This isn't just, show me, but it's let me get my hands dirty. Let me see how it's done. And when we do that, that's how we grow the talent pipeline. And as we like to state here at STEM Connector, insurance is STEM. Every single segment of insurance is STEM. So, Christina, I'm going to go over to you because I know you've got a viewpoint and you have a board of directors that you use in your career, in your life, not just here in the States, but globally. Any thoughts and any words of wisdom for us there?
Um, it's funny, kind of as I think about my career and the people that have helped me along the way, and I see some of the things in the chat, sometimes it just happens serendipitously, and it's just kind of being available, being open to the feedback and reaching out to people who I often say reach out to those who aren't in your inner circle, right? Reach out to the ones who are that second degree if you're on LinkedIn and say, hey, you're doing something really cool and interesting. Would love to learn more about it. And I've had people reach out to me that way. I've reached out to others, and I just learned so much around connecting with people who are at the adjacencies. Someone also had shared with me a couple years ago that a person that they had really respected would reach out and send a note to one person every day when he was ending the day. It just could be a random, like, hey, just thinking about you. How's it going? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that's such a beautiful thing to just end your day with reaching out and saying, I was thinking about you. And so I also just encourage just to connect. Insurance is such a people business. And so how do we connect with each other? It doesn't always need to be in a formal way, but it's just recognizing I see you. I'm thinking about you. I wish you well. Let's share a moment together. And then thirdly, if I think about kind of the younger generation, it's oftentimes, they want to be connected to something that's bigger. And I think those of us who are in insurance and have Brandon brought up, you think about all the great things, how you're helping people and driving change in the market, but how do you articulate that? And I see, insurance is really contributing to resiliency. So whether that's economic resiliency, environmental resiliency, community resiliency, all of those things, that messaging resonates with different people. And how do you connect the work that we do in insurance to those, kind of that higher level of empathy and resiliency that, appeals to a lot of the next generation. And that's really driving the growth in our industry.
Yeah, it really is. And those are powerful messages. When you think about resiliency and empathy in the same sentence, kindness, warmth, just reaching out person to person. It is one person at a time. And there's nothing mysterious or magical about mentorship, allyship. It's just that we do it, right? We do it with a purity of spirit. And we give and we give and we give. And we find, right, that the more we give, we get back so much more than we could ever give. Lee, I'm going to shift it up a little, and don't worry, Brandon, we're going to get to you. But how can we welcome the men? How can we welcome the men in? How can we empower them so they feel as comfortable as Brandon does joining us today?
I think we're doing it right. It's just sometimes you think of different people and bringing them into the conversation. I think when you just say someone's name right in conversation and trying to connect like what they've done to help you or help others, and kind of saying their name is a big piece of it too. I look at it like a lot of us, and maybe others may have a different experience, but I feel like a lot of people who have been in my circle of trust, or have been men, right? Many people don't realize it, but sometimes it's that different perspective that really truly helps you kind of see through certain things, right? That it's those times where when you have those conversations, it's more so like thinking about them and saying, you know what, you'd be great at this conversation because you helped me here. Like, would you be open to joining this type of conversation? And it's where I think sometimes the human component comes into play, right? It's taking what you feel like you would have wanted for yourself as like a person growing in the industry. Like, what would you have wanted? And it's kind of saying that and looking at the different people. And I think when Kylie talked about, learning from different people, there's a phrase that someone had said to me a while back, and it's success leaves clues, right? Find the people who are really successful at what they do, learn from them. And that, I think that has allowed me to progress in my own career, to find the people who are doing the things that I want to do. And, at some point, and we all know this, at a good point in time, a lot of it have been men, right? In certain positions. And now I think the landscape is changing, which is nice to see, but the landscape hasn't changed as much as we probably would like it, because the movement is still going and progress is happening, but probably not as quickly as we want to. But sometimes it's just taking a step back and knowing that what you're doing is making a difference, and just being proud of that for yourself.
It's really true. So I wish I could see you all, but you can raise your hand or do whatever you'd like to do, jump in the chat. But how many of you have had a mentor that's a male if you're a female, or if you're a male, have you had a female mentor? Yeah.
Yeah.
When we have those moments, we learn from that diversity of thought and perspective that is so rich. So, Marissa, I'm going to go over to you, and we're going to stay on this enlisting the male idea for a minute, because USAA does it really well, welcoming everyone into the room. Any thoughts that you want to share on some of your successes in bringing males to the table?
Absolutely. So we actually have this on a pretty broad spectrum, where we have a gender advocacy group, and the sponsor is a male, and that's by design, right? And it really opened the door to not only tell us how you feel or what you're thinking, but help us build this too, and give them that ownership in this, right? So the success around it, like, they get to help us build it, and they get to help us see us through it. And the gender advocacy group is all about having those conversations that can be really hard and critical when it comes to that relationship, and especially the mentoring and getting past the surface mentoring, right? Where it's, tell me what you do and how you got there, but really bringing and having that trust and connection with your mentor. And then the other thing that we did that really just drove the numbers, and Brandon, I'm going to push on you, but we actually have a Daughter's Day. And where we thought, right, like, oh, this is a PNC Women in Leadership group, we're going to have all the moms bring their daughters, like, that's what's going to happen. It ended up being absolutely reverse. And this is the #1 event where I think all of our men who were like, I have a daughter, and I want her to see what we do here at the company. And I want her to be able to learn and take from that. And, leadership, it's not even just about all of the acumen in insurance. It's about being a leader and what that means, and caring for others and listening. And we're going into our 3rd year of that. And that has also really got the buy-in from our gender advocates of like, hey, this doesn't just start when someone enters the insurance industry, right? It starts way ahead of that. And how do we start seeing that? And how do we start pulling on daughters and friends and everyone around it to really start building that advocacy for ourselves?
It's so true. And I've seen so many organizations adopt Daughters and Sons Day.
Mhm.
Right? And bringing everybody together. And that's how we start to plant the seeds. So, Brandon, you're going to get the last word, but I'm going to go over to Dawn for a minute, because Dawn, I know you have some perspectives about how we can really attract the next generation. And I have to tell a little story. When I first met Dawn, she was really just stepping into her power after finishing her master's in insurance, and she got herself out there. She was at industry events, and it was fantastic to see how men and women really took you under their wing, and now you're
Absolutely.
taking others under your wing, which is so wonderful, Dawn.
Absolutely. I have big feelings about mentorship. I want to just quickly speak to those who may be in the audience that struggle with finding a mentor. I know it's scary sometimes to go up to people. You don't often run into people like Christina and Margaret who are just so open and inviting and wear their heart for mentorship on their sleeve. So it can be a little bit, nerve-wracking to go up to somebody, but all you need is 10 seconds, 10 seconds of courage to go and introduce yourself and say, my name is this. I'm interested in this. I think that I could help you in this. I think always coming with something that you can bring to the table as well is a really good way to broach these conversations. It always helped me. But at first, as outgoing and talkative as I am, finding a mentor was really a challenge for me. But in terms of engaging youth, we talk about bringing daughters and sons to work. AM Best has that. It went away for a little bit, I guess, during COVID, but they reinitiated having Bring Your Kids to Work Day. And my daughter is 11, and she definitely wanted to come and see. She wanted to meet the president, and she wanted to know where we serve the coffee. Those were the two things that she wanted. And I made sheer mention of this to our president as a joke, just to let him know. He was not scheduled to be in the office that day. He changed his schedule so that he can meet my daughter.
So powerful. That
So
is
powerful.
so powerful. And
So
you know
powerful.
what? She'll never forget this, and you'll never forget it.
Absolutely. And, ironically, he was one of the people that sponsored me inside of this company, along with, it was like a mixture of him and a woman. So it was the perfect mentorship, allyship, sponsorship duel. Andrea Keenan and Matt Mosher, they embrace finding the value in their current, people and using that for my advantage, for your advantage, and for the company's advantage as well. I think they do a great job about that. But it starts really young as you can possibly, start it. They have insurance books for children to understand how insurance works. Visited Lloyd's of London and brought back a cute little book to share with my daughter when she was very, very young. And having those conversations and bringing her into the conversation about just what insurance means for her in our life. And I've spoken at career days at high schools. And I'll tell you that children and high school students are figuring out what they want to study as early as 10th grade, because they have to start preparing to go, to apply for college. So you literally have to access these kids by 8th grade or 9th grade.
Oh, and Dawn, I'm going to say even earlier, like if we can start influencing second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, the earlier the better. Like, something as simple as math is fun, right? Yeah. Math is fun. And we did career days at my kids' school too. And I remember I had an actuary come in. The kids loved him. I don't know, Vinay, if you're on the call, but Vinay Sharma, he just charmed every single one of those sixth graders. And I would like to believe we got a few engineers, accountants, actuaries, data scientists out of that. And that's exciting. That's very exciting and very real. So Brandon, I promised you the last word. I was going to say, you're bringing us a diversity of perspective. You're wearing many hats on this call, my friend. Tell us, how are you reacting to what we're sharing? Are we doing it right? Is there anything we can do better?
Yeah, well, it's just, there's so many awesome perspectives being shared. It springs all kinds of thoughts. But first I have to, when I hear an actuary comes in and is the life of the party, I always want to call that out, because we're not always known for our personalities. So I want to make sure to highlight that. The getting men more involved and things, it comes down to asking. Like Margaret asked me to participate in this panel, thrilled to do so. I don't know that I would have thought of it though. And then Dawn, the 10 seconds of courage, that goes to me like the best leadership lesson I've learned for myself. It applies outside the office too, is learning to embrace the uncomfortable, not just do it, but embrace it, and then seeing the growth that comes from that. And so that that 10 seconds, there was a young professional at Germania, a young woman that had reached out and asked about mentoring, and she started setting up meetings with me, and it's been tremendous. And over time, that's led to opportunities and advancement because she capitalized on those opportunities. But it's that 10 seconds of courage is so important. And I think Christina mentioned relationships, and I think of insurance as data-driven relationship. It's a data-driven relationship-based industry, and I think sometimes some of us, we go on the data side, but we got to remember the relationship side, and just getting those conversations started is to me so important, because one of the things that I've found most important in my job is, like, we've got a lot of talented folks, and just making sure that we're all connected and working in the same direction. And that comes from conversations, picking up the phone instead of sending an email, simple things that really do make a difference. The daughter and son stay we haven't done. I want to look at that. The idea of, one, promoting insurance, and two, just helping to bridge that family and work and what's going on, and it just brings that together as well. Tremendous. One other thing that was in the chat, I think it was Tanya who said, seeing and recognizing all voices in the room and how important that is. To me, I was thinking that is really important, because you can bring the people in the room, but as a leader, I need to make sure I'm drawing those folks out, because they may not be comfortable, and helping to create that safe space and letting the crazy ideas come out, right? And I throw out ideas, and then 3 minutes later realize, well, that wasn't a good idea, but making that space feel comfortable so that people don't hold back, because it's amazing. Sometimes you get somebody and you think they're not contributing, all of a sudden you draw them out and they have like 3 thoughts that are tremendous, and everyone's like, whoa, where did that come from? And then that gets the confidence for them to keep going. So anyway, I think just ask is my simple answer, but really great perspectives that have been shared here. Really like it.
Now, this is a fantastic dialogue, and the chat, I'm picking up bits and pieces of it. What a great active chat. I mean, such rich perspectives, your takeaways. It's powerful, right? And it's things that we can live and do. Whatever your superpower is, whatever your secret sauce is, this is your time, right? This is your time to drink it all in. So I'm going to open up the aperture a little bit, which I love to do. And we are here in the States, all of us today, but all of us have a global community, a global network of men, women, leaders, aspiring leaders across the globe. How can we really stretch our arms and our heads and our hearts across the boundaries to truly build that community? And all of us have global reach on this call, which is fantastic. Kaylee, I'm going to come over to you. Swiss Re has a big reach, big heads, big hearts, big hands. How are you doing it, and what perspectives might you share?
Absolutely. I think it's a huge perk of our industry is the global nature of it. And I think that's what attracted a lot of us to these kind of jobs. Personally, I would say from a mentoring standpoint, I've always had one mentor in the US and one mentor outside just to get different perspectives. So I think that's super helpful. Also, when it comes to rotation opportunities, don't think just your local area, right? There's so many different markets that have so many different dynamics that you can learn so much from, that maybe there's certain skill sets you would never have to learn here in the US, but you could gain because you go and you work in LATAM or APAC. So I think making sure that you're not only seeking those opportunities in those other areas, but also when you have an opportunity on your team, don't just think to the couple people that you tend to work with regularly, but really post that on your kind of resource websites at your company and try to attract people from other areas to engage in those kind of discussions. And lastly, I would say, I travel quite a bit for work. I think a lot of us do. If I'm going somewhere new, not only am I going to make sure I'm doing coffee catch-ups with the regular people that I talk to, but also reaching out to new people from industry organizations that I work with that I know have a presence in whichever country I'm going to, and trying to connect with them there, because we're going to have similar stories and similar struggles. So I think that's a great way that you can expand your network, both internally and externally.
Thank you. It makes the world very, very small. Those coffees or those teas, those opportunities to make it real and to humanize, it really does make a difference. Marissa, I know that USAA is doing a big expansion globally. Any perspectives, any ideas on how we can uplift here?
Yeah, I definitely think we like to say we have to be each other's influencers and paparazzi, right? Like we have to make sure that we're constantly talking about what's happening across, especially the boundaries and borders. And it should not be a, well, that's over there thing. Like we have to be able to openly have these things and then promote what everyone is doing. And regardless of where it is, that's such an important part of it. And I think it helps with those connections of, one thing I've definitely learned about insurance is there is no one complete subject matter expert across the value chain of insurance. There are experts across each part of it, but knowing who those are and connecting people, I've always found, right, even internationally, when people come and ask me something, if I'm not the expert, guess what? I know who is, and I can tell you, you know what, you should talk to this person and start making those, helping people make those connections. Because sometimes people don't know what they don't know. And of course, you haven't met everyone, right? So understanding that. So, I would say it's definitely keeping all things on the forefront is really important in order for us to really uplift each other.
Yeah, all of those are fantastic points. And I think it's that whole idea of embracing learning and loving curiosity and stepping into that beautiful power. Lee, you just put something great in the chat. Why don't you talk about the various organizations that I know that you touch in all the intersections that we have globally?
No, thank you. And I think that's another piece of it too. There's just so many different areas of the industry that some people just are not aware of. And I think being the founder of MRIA, as we call it, MRIA, it's a way to kind of bring that awareness, right? If, like Marissa said, what you don't. But I think us as individuals, it's our responsibility, right, to kind of bring things to the forefront. And you do it for the greater good, knowing that it's going to help someone, one person, multiple, whatever the case may be. But there are a lot of industry organizations. And I think I work in the reinsurance world, and I've been in reinsurance most of my career, pretty much my entire career. And it's one of those things that we talk about. We're a very global industry, and reinsurance really touches all those areas, whether it's the US, whether it's, Canadian market, the UK, London, APAC, Latin America. There's so many different areas. And I think some of these organizations all exist in all these regions, right? There are things that we do with MRIA, that there's an organization called ICANN, which is, the Insurance Cultural Awareness Network, that's based in the UK. And they've been doing this for close to, I think, 10 years in the UK. So it's kind of like, bringing awareness to what they do. They have a mentorship program, a formal mentorship program. They have things like NIA, like I put in the chat, which is the National African American Insurance Association, which has 28 chapters across the US. And they all have, different formal mentorships that they have created for their members. Like ISC is another one, which we talked about earlier, which is the Insurance Supper Club. If no one does not know, it's something that Margaret definitely has been a part of. And I know Megan Bell, who's on the who's listening in from Insure Her podcast, is there too. So there's just so many different areas. And it's just kind of, how do we bring it to the forefront? I think it's having these conversations, talking about it, right, is a great way to kind of share the great things that are happening and bringing it to a broader audience that we just never would think about. And hopefully that someone on this call who's listening will take it and be like, oh, I didn't know about that. Let me find out, or like connect with any one of us, and we'll be more than happy to kind of share our, our perspective and areas that we think like, might be helpful for you.
Absolutely. No, those are fantastic resources. Something that's really actionable that I've seen a lot of organizations do is when they do have visitors from another country over, they just create a pop-up. Like, okay, our colleagues from Canada are in, our colleagues from Mexico are in, colleagues from Dublin are in, UK, and they want to hear from us. They are so interested in us, but of course, we're so interested in them. And if you've ever had the experience of going to another country, isn't it fun to be that topic of conversation where they go, "Oh, I love your accent." And I go, "Me? I have an accent?" Yes, I do. Everybody from Chicago, born and raised. But that's so fun. And it is energizing and it is human. So if you do have an opportunity to host and showcase your colleagues from around the globe, they love it. We love it. And it makes the world tinier. Christina, you are a globetrotter. And I know every time I talk to you, you're somewhere very cool, whether it's Paris or Portugal or Zurich. Tell us a little bit about what you're feeling and hearing across the globe.
No, thanks, Margaret. And actually, I just got back from 2 weeks. I was in South Africa and then Portugal. So I do really appreciate all of the feedback. I think what Kaylee, Marissa, Lee gave really examples of how do you connect with people on a personal level. And I find when I travel abroad, I am just me, right? And I want to me as a person trying to connect and understand and support another person who's in a different geography as I am. Um, when you kind of talk about like what are we hearing in the market, I think insurance is the most interconnected, I think, industry in the world. I challenge somebody to say otherwise. And so whether you think about whether it's, climate change, or you think about supply chain, or you think about all these different emerging risks that people talk about over dinner and drinks around the world, the insurance industry is really a part of that. And so that's what really makes it interesting and set. It's front of mind, it's in the news, and we all have a role that we can play to really support some of the big things that are happening on the front of the paper or online right now. So I enjoy kind of being in that space. And I think because we have a global perspective and global network of community, how do we play matchmaker across those borders, right? Whether it's from a technical knowledge standpoint, but there's a geographic standpoint. And I love connecting people and saying, you guys are both kind of working on this issue from different angles. How do we really bring it together? She talked about, I think Kaylee talked about it from a career perspective. I was like the one person who always volunteered to work overseas. So most of my insurance career has actually been outside the US and not in the US. And I just also say, as insurance executives, especially US based, making sure that at meetings, and at strategy and discussions that you're incorporating the voices of the global power that your company brings, right? I think that's so important, whether that's when messages are sent, when meetings are scheduled, who's on key projects, just really making sure that you're leveraging that organizational strength from across the world and figuring out how to make it work asynchronously if time zones are impacting you. But you're going to create such richer products and services and experiences and really drive innovation if you're harnessing all of the talent that's around the globe and not just those that are kind of in your immediate time zone.
No. It's all about stretching, right? Stretching, and that does take courage. It does take intention. But when it does happen and we get it right, and we may not get it right the first time, everybody, we're going to stumble. We're going to. It's okay. We just pick ourselves up. No judgment, right? No judgment. It's a safe place. It's a safe place. This is where we learn, we grow, we do it together. So you've heard that word safety throughout this discussion, and I want to talk about why insurance is a safe space and how do we continue to promote that, to enrich that, to cherish that in our cultures of belonging and balance. Belonging and balance. So I want to give each one of you a moment to share one thought, one idea, and we'll just go around our virtual table here so all the voices are heard. Dawn, I'm going to start with you. How can we foster culture, belonging, balance in our safe space?
Yeah, well, the insurance industry has definitely been a safe space for me. One of my earlier mentors told me you have to provide a safe space for people to fail because, as we know, you need to fail and you need to fail fast. And so earlier in my career, I took that with me and understanding how the metaphor of insurance being an anchor just for the world. It is the anchor. It is that safe space. It is the industry that comes to the rescue when catastrophic events happen. It comes to the rescue when someone's home burns down, when someone's house floods. And I think that taking that idea of what the insurance industry is supposed to mean and does mean, from there you can continue to foster culture from there, recognizing value in people, calling on people's name, saying their names in rooms when they're not there. I've been a beneficiary of that, and I'm so grateful for that, but it also reminds me to carry that forward. And so I think about access, I think about opportunity, and I think about recognition and those for other people, and making sure that's how we all stay balanced, is when you have that level of thinking for someone else, and we all start to share in that way of thinking, in that way of behaving, in that way of interacting with coworkers, and just with everyone in terms of insurance. um I think that that's where inclusivity comes in to play, where you don't have to worry about having, I would say, just, a mantra on the wall. It really becomes an active way of working and an active way of living, and creating that space.
Right. I love that, Dawn. It's what we do, right? It's what we do, not what we say. It's what we do. And I love what you said, say the names. You know that all of our favorite word is our name, right? When we say someone's name and we pronounce it correctly, that is the most beautiful word we will ever hear. So that's my cue to go to Kaylee, which is a Hawaiian name that means energy. And I always check with Kaylee because I want to make sure that I say that beautiful name correctly. But Kaylee, what do you do? What advice do you have for us?
I think it really just comes from a place of leading by example, right? If I'm open and vulnerable with the challenges I'm facing and how I'm overcoming those challenges and the actions that I'm taking, then the people around me are going to feel comfortable coming to me and sharing what they're going through so that we can really have that dialogue of how to help them get to the next level. And I think we've touched on this in the past, but I mean, a lot of us here are extroverts and we're happy to talk to people and kind of open up, but not everyone is that way. So I think it's really being comfortable, like taking no, not as the final answer, right? If I have like events like this that I'm going to, you're going to get an invite from me maybe 4 or 5 times, but maybe it takes you a couple times to feel comfortable coming. Maybe that initial time you were like, oh, maybe she's just being nice. But then if you keep, inviting those people to the table, I think eventually they feel comfortable to show up. And lastly, I would say just giving people the platforms to have those conversations. It's great to have panels where we can all speak, but having time for Q&A or even doing breakouts, that's something we've had a lot of success with our women's ERG, is some people feel more comfortable in a group of 5 people versus 100 people. So really breaking out those team calls so people can talk in a smaller group and get to know each other a little bit better can really help with that overall culture.
Love that. Marissa, your thoughts about finding that safe place, that balanced place, as Kaylee said, being actional about it. You two are vibing on each other for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, she said so many great things that I think, we believe in the shadow of a leader, right? So it kind of works both ways. So, we say we want, people to shadow a leader, but as a leader, are you doing the things that you want people to shadow? And belonging and making that space for people to feel that sense of belonging is very important. And we have a pretty strong mission at USA about how we treat our members and how we are going to protect them and what we want to do for them for advice. And we bring that insight as well. It's equally important for us, right? The employees can only also feel that for our members if we are doing that here. And so this sense of belonging really plays through every aspect of the job, I'll say, versus just, when it's right or when we happen to be in the right room. It should carry through every piece of the day, whether you're with the 500 people or the 5 people. And creating, I would say, it's not just inviting, to the room. That's the first step. It's stopping and being purposeful with the creating the space for people to get their sense of belonging and be able to have a piece of that. And that's really where it starts. And then I think once people start feeling that trust, they can have those open conversations, and you get down to the things that people care about and where they see that gap in where the belonging is, and really start actioning that.
Absolutely. I am so glad that you brought up mission, because mission is so critical to insurance, right? And to our safe spaces, and living and breathing a mission, and loving a mission, and nurturing a mission is really, what it's all about. So thank you for that. Brandon, over to you. How can we do it? How can we do it better?
Yeah, thanks, Margaret Resce Milkint, for creating this safe space here. I mean, I think this is a good example where everyone's sharing, and it's, we're all comfortable sharing our ideas openly. One of our guiding beliefs, and it's the first one on our list, is that we put people first at Germania. As a mutual company, our policyholders are our owners. We have independent agents, and we have our team members. And even though we have to make a lot of decisions that may be challenging for our policyholders or our agents or our team members, having that mindset of putting people first allows us to do things in a way that, showing compassion, being empathetic. Even we might be doing something that's favorable or unfavorable, but that really helps us. And then again, in those meetings, in those discussions, just as you hear, you called on all, we all had a voice in this discussion. There weren't 3 people talking and the rest of us listening, making sure that we create that type of environment as we're interacting, and then that models the way for the other leaders in the organization. So I just think setting that tone and then living it is really important.
It is so true. And you think about a role model, think about an ambassador. Close your eyes for a minute, everybody. Who's that person who welcomed you in, who made you feel space? Be that person. Thank that person. Let's create more of that moment, more of that experience. We need more, and we need faster, right? Accelerate, accelerate, accelerate. Uh, that seems to be the perfect cue for you, Lee. You are an accelerator. You are a change maker in the industry. What are you thinking about this topic? Culture, belonging, safety, accelerating.
There's just so many, and I think a lot of everyone on this call touched on a lot of different areas. I really think at the end of the day, it's like, just do what you wish someone would have done for you, right? Just think about it from your own personal perspective, and like what you would have wanted, and try to pave that forward to the next person. Bring them up with you, whether like paving the way for them or saying their name in the conversation. It's sometimes, we think simple things should be that simple, but sometimes it's not that simple. But I feel like just that in itself would just alleviate a lot if you just think about what you would have wanted and trying to do that same thing for somebody else.
Absolutely. Well, I can't believe this hour is going by so quickly. So what I'm going to do is, Christina, I'm going to give you the last word on the safe space, and then I'm going to give you the first word on the lightning round wrap up. So give us the last word about the safe space, and then leave us with your 1 or 2 words of wisdom that are going to take us forward as we leave this safe space and we create new ones.
I'd say they're probably one and the same. I was going to add to the conversation curiosity and vulnerability, right? It's all about this empathy, this curiosity, engaging with others, creating the safe space. But it also, as whether you're a leader or an analyst coming into a company, it's being vulnerable and sharing what you don't know and trusting kind of the people to help you along the way as well. I think for us to build stronger relationships, we have to be vulnerable, we have to show that empathy, and we have to be curious about others and how things could be different.
Love that. All right, lightning round time. Marissa, what would you like to leave? What's in that head, that heart, and those hands of yours as we go forward?
Oh, I would say we need to continue to be persistent on this, right? Don't let up, and then we say that with the reinvent. That's our word for 2025. It's about taking what we already have and rethinking of it with, we talked everything here from how we get new talent to how do we mentor people, and we got to continue to reinvent how we do those things so we're inclusive across.
Love that. Brandon.
I challenge everybody, you got 3 weeks left in the month, go start at least one conversation with somebody you don't normally interact with about career development.
Love that. Thank you. Dawn.
Well, I said 10 seconds of courage, but I didn't say this. Everything that you want is just on the other side of fear. You just have to go through it. You have to walk through that. Everything you want.
Love it. Love it. Haley.
I think it's all about engaging in conversations around continuous improvement and fresh perspectives. If you're thinking it, there's probably 10 other people thinking it as well, and really bringing that to the table is how we're going to get change done together.
Terrific. All right, Lee, bring us home.
I will just say, be kind. Everyone has their own journey. Just be kind. Know that everyone has something going on, and just taking that moment and just be kind no matter what.
I love that. I am so grateful to each one of you and to all of you here who have spent the last hour and a minute with us. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your care. Thank you for your wisdom, your kindness, and your grace. So with that, everyone, let's go forward. International Women's Day doesn't end today. It keeps going. It's a movement. Let's do this together. My bravos to all of you. Thank you so much, everyone. And keep it going. Keep it going. This has been recorded. Tell everybody you know. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.